President Trump is furious about John Deere's continuing plans to move some of its production to Mexico. And so here's what we all need to know. We're going to first start off with an article by Agricultural Drive, and this talks about then presidential candidate Trump in 2024. Trump threatens Deere with 200% tariffs if it shifts manufacturing to Mexico. And then the Gazette reported that there was a John Deere quote saying, "We are not moving production to Mexico," but we need to look into this quote here. In an email on Wednesday, and this was back in 2024 after the Trump tariffs, in an email on Wednesday, a spokesman for the company, John Deere, stated that less than 5% of Deere's U.S. sales are manufactured in Mexico, and more than 75% of all sales in the United States are from U.S.-based manufacturing facilities. Here's the quotes. "We have had a presence in Mexico since 1952, and it's not unusual for Deere to consider any number of factors when it comes into leveraging our global footprint as a global business while building new products in U.S. factories." The statement reads, "Layoffs this fiscal year were due to a weakening farm economy in 2024 and a reduction in customer orders for our equipment." So that's what Deere is saying was causing some of the layoffs that they had in 2024. So a lot of people thought, okay, because of this, that again, that headline read, "John Deere, we're not moving production to Mexico." So then there was a rumor that, okay, John Deere responded because of Trump's threat about 200% tariffs. But then the Wall Street Journal had an article, and this was in last updated about a month after that other article. So in October of 2014, the Wall Street Journal reported, "Deere says Trump did not stop Mexico plans as presidential candidate Trump claimed." The article says farm equipment maker Deere & Company said it is not abandoning a plan to move some of its production to the U.S. So this sounds different than that Gazette article that we read earlier. So let's keep going. Deere was countering former President Donald Trump's claim Tuesday that he persuaded the company to reconsider. Now, again, this was when Trump was a presidential candidate. Deere in 2022 decided to move production of cabs for its large farm tractors from Waterloo, Iowa to an existing plant in Mexico. The cab move is scheduled to be completed later this year. Okay, so now let's go to Mexico and see what Mexico is saying. This is the Mexico news. John Deere confirms U.S. $55 million investment in Mexico plant despite Trump's threat. So in September, Trump threatened a 200% tariff. This is when he was a presidential candidate. And this is John Deere recommitting that previous commitment of $55 million in a Mexico plant. And so the question is, why is John Deere relocating production to Mexico? This is according to Mexico News Daily. According to data compiled by John Deere, Mexico is the second largest consumer of its construction equipment in Latin America, with a growth of 76% since 2022. So like a lot of things, these are complicated. So what I want to do now is go back to 2022, give a little bit of background, and then share, importantly, where we are now and how we need to be thinking about this. Okay, so this is going back to the 2022 move when John Deere first announced it was going to be moving production of some current U.S. production down to Mexico. This is back to the Des Moines Register. As John Deere shifts some jobs from Iowa to Mexico, U.S. trade rep defends trade treaty. So they're defending the North American Free Trade Agreement, which President Trump in his first term renegotiated. Okay, the announcement came 6 months after 10,000 United Auto Worker members went on strike against Deere, securing concession from the Illinois-based manufacturer. Deere executive announced in June, this was in June of 2022, they would move tractor cab production to Mexico from Waterloo in 2024. And in July, Deere announced that it would move production of its mower conditioners from Atumwa to Monterrey, Mexico over the next 18 months. Okay, so that catches us up on the background, what has happened in the past, both the initial move before President Trump was even a presidential candidate for his second term. Back in 2022, they announced this, and according to the Mexican article, that move is in part because Latin America is such a strong growth area. So where are we now? So this is as of a couple months ago, February 2025, back to the Des Moines Register. John Deere announces 16th round of layoffs in Iowa, this time at the Ankeny plant. John Deere has confirmed it's reducing its workforce at the John Deere Des Moines Works plant in Ankeny by 119 people in 3 phases scheduled for March 28th, April 4th, and April 29th. In its statement, Deere said the layoffs were the latest round in the past year of about 2,000 job cuts at its plants across Iowa, continuing to be the result of struggling farm economy, not in shifts of work elsewhere. Now, you know, there's a lot of reasons companies might shift production, shift jobs, lay off people. Um, so let's go to current date because John Deere just recently reported how it's doing, and fortunately, we have some good news here. So this is back to an organization called Manufacturing Drive. Um, and they have an article, Deere details $500 million dollar tariff impact. And again, this is good news. Uh, and this was, as I record this, just a couple weeks ago released. In terms of pricing actions, given that most of the order books are full for 2025, Jepsen said there's not much opportunity for them to increase prices. However, Deere is evaluating price increases for its 2026 equipment. In terms of tariffs, Deere is expecting most of the $500 million headwind, which I'm assuming is from the tariff, that headwind to impact construction and forestry operations, which are more exposed to China than its agricultural operations. According to a company presentation, nearly 80% of its goods sold are assembled in U.S. manufacturing sites. Okay, now here's some good news. Despite historic levels of volatility, the chairman and CEO of John Deere, John May, said that the company performed better than expected as Q2 sales and revenues rebounded from the previous quarters. Results doubled over that period. Now, why is that? Why did results double? Deere attributed the higher sales in part to a stronger farm balance sheet as the U.S. government distributed $10 billion in emergency payments to farmers following a poor 2024 crop year. The company is expected to increase liquidity and more stable crop prices to help mitigate the tariff effects for the remainder of 2025. So that's important. There's this symbiotic relationship between John Deere, its farmers, and the government, and it's kind of this triangle, this trilogy, if you will, of 3 important players, and the government plays an important factor. Notice that $10 billion in emergency payments. The U.S. government, we all have a vested interest in having a stable, secure, healthy food supply. And so the U.S. government steps in at times like this, and $10 billion is a big payment. The article finishes by saying Deere is prepared to spend $20 billion in the U.S. over the next 10 years. John May, who's the CEO of John Deere, said, while no specific details were disclosed, the company is looking to invest in new product development, the latest technologies, and advanced manufacturing. Okay, so what does all this mean? What all this means is it's complicated. Obviously, President Trump doesn't like that John Deere is moving some of its production jobs to Mexico. John Deere is saying, hey, Latin America is an important market for us. But hopefully this plan to invest $20 billion in the U.S. does come to fruition. That would be a great thing for American workers. I suspect President Trump would be thrilled with something like that. If you like this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine, specifically for you to watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.